to Toka Ingoa. Look, welcome to today's Hui on the Waikato Plan Youth Training and Employment collaboration. I'd just like to start with an opening karakia. Kia hora ti marino, kia whakapapapu ngāmu te moana. Hei huarahi mā tātou I te rangi nei, araha atu aruha mai, tātou I a tātou katoa, hui e taihiki e. Hey, look, welcome everybody. As I said, I'm Max Baxter. I am the Mayor of Aotearoa District, at least for the next few weeks, with the anticipation that I'll be back here for another 3 years. So if you don't know my face by now, you probably will know it after too many years in service to the public. Hey, I'd like to welcome everybody here, especially I'd like to welcome Margaret Wilson, the chair of the Waikato Plan. Margaret, I appreciate this is your last meeting with us here today, so it's really, really cool to have you on board. And I'd also just like to acknowledge Desiree for her last meeting here with us as well. Being the manager of the Waikato Plan and being my right-hand person for so long now, when she said that she was departing, I got incredibly nervous. So if you see me shaking at any point during the meeting, it is just the reflection on the fact that Desiree is not going to be here for much longer. So Desiree, thank you so much for the help over the last few years. And certainly your departure will be noted and we'll miss you dearly. But good luck on your new venture. And Margaret, good luck with your cats. Okay. So I'm sure you've all read through the agenda by now. So I'll just ask if anybody out there, is there any apologies that you'd like recorded?
I received from Angela Strange, Shelley Wilson, Marcus Frake.
Awesome. Is there any further out there? If so, just leave them in the chat and Michelle will follow up on that. So I'd just like to move that those apologies be received. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Margaret. Right, moving on to, at the moment my co-chair is absent, so it is me just sitting in the main seat at the moment. First off, for the next 15 or so minutes, we have Margaret speaking about the Waikato Plan, and then we'll open up to questions following her presentation. Margaret, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you very much for the invitation and just endorse your comments about Desiree. I'm quite pleased, I must say, that our mutual going on to other things coincided, actually, because otherwise, like you, I would have been in a state of absolute terror. Now, thank you for the invitation today. I thought what I'd do is just some personal reflections, if you don't mind. The agenda looks really important, and I know this working group has been extremely important from the Waikato Plan's point of view. The Waikato Plan, as I think most of you know, has been around for some time, but the past 2 or 3 years we've tried to focus on some of, if you like, important activities to the communities that we serve. And one of those is, in fact, the Youth Training and Employment Workshop. That's been absolutely crucial. And in the review we've been doing recently of where we should go with the Waikato Plan in the future, one of the issues that has been endorsed, I think, by just about everybody, is that what is needed is not only the regional focus, but a regional focus that's got collaboration. In other words, that there is some coordination, collaboration, working together, cooperation on a regional basis, particularly when we're interacting with other agencies, and particularly those agencies in Wellington. And therefore, one of our workshops has been trying to work out what exactly we mean by corroboration. Everyone agrees that we should have it, but actually having it sometimes becomes a bit more difficult, or even identifying it. I find sometimes people don't realise they've got it, and they're actually working really well together, and one could put the name corroboration on it and be grateful for that. So what I've done for today is just list, I suppose, 2 or 3 things that I've found quite useful. In my somewhat varied life, I've had to, like Max, chair various groups or coordinate various groups that have required, if you like, what's come to be called corroboration. And one of the first things that I learned rather painfully on some occasions, was that when you think you're listening, you're not. And the art of listening is one of the most difficult tasks that any convener, chair, mediator, what have you, those working with people actually has. And I've tried to work out what it is that makes it easier for at least me to listen. And a couple of the things are to make sure everybody has time, including yourself. And time becomes something we all take for granted, but we have very little of. And if you don't have time to listen, then through no one's fault, you will actually miss stuff, I think, because you will be distracted or the other person will be your group. Time is not the only thing, however. I've felt place is really important. And the number of occasions upon which I'd been called into what might be called quite difficult meetings at times, to find the chairs are uncomfortable, there's not enough room, nobody really knows where they're meant to be, where's the, is it round, is it whatever. So giving some thought into the physical space, and then COVID said we had to give some thought into the virtual space as well. So that becomes equally important, I think, as time goes ahead. And often these are things that are sort of just taken for granted. And they're taken for granted, I think, because often it's not quite realised that we really have to plan if we have occasions of cooperation. They don't just happen by accident. There has to be some planning, and people have to understand what the purpose of the meeting is. So you've got to clarify its purpose, and you've got to be able to communicate well. So planning means that someone has to do it. So it's extremely important that that person, process, institution, what have you, that has that task, if you like. And it's a leadership of a certain sort, actually, but really important and should never be underestimated. And in the very olden days, the task was always the secretary's job, and everyone hated the secretary's job because not only did they do minutes, but they had to arrange all the practical things that went with it. And we don't use the term now, but at the same time, we've been fortunate in this particular context to have Desiree. But Desiree is only as good as she can be by the assistance and resourcing she gets to do the job. So that comes back to why do you have the need for cooperation on a particular issue? So how are you going to resource it and how you're going to support it? And on if you like this point, I'd make one other point, and it's become perhaps a little more urgent through COVID, and that's everyone, to the best of everyone's ability, to have knowledge about what you're on about. And with so much disinformation out there at the moment, just having knowledge or some understanding of each other's positions or the position becomes extremely important, and where are you going to get it? And that becomes, I think, increasingly often difficult, because often how to access in my area as public policy becomes a nightmare. And I have been, as Desiree knows for another reason, trying to write a paper on government for a symposium, and trying to access information on government websites is an absolute nightmare and something you don't have time for. I'm going to recast what I'm going to do, I think. But it highlighted for me, which is why I mentioned it, because if you don't actually have some knowledge of what you're talking about, then you're bound to have miscommunication, or there's bound to be difficulties that arise from it. So once you get through the listening, you've got it all organised and what have you. What is in fact the agenda of the meeting? And we've all been to meetings, I think, and wondered why on earth we're there, or whether they be face-to-face or they be online. So we need to really spend some time formally understanding with each other why we're about to meet. It's an obvious point, but often We just do it. And that's sometimes because, quite rightly, we have it in our diaries because they have to be in our diaries because we're time short, and whether we need it or not perhaps isn't considered before we actually have it. So you need to identify your agenda, and when the agenda is, and it can be quite formal or informal depending on the nature of the collaboration that you're seeking. But I've always found it's much easier to identify the points you have in common rather than the points you have in disagreement. And the number of times I'd been called to meetings because there was a disagreement or a conflict, to find that if you start with, well, where do we agree on anything, you find there's not actually much to disagree on at the end of the day, or nothing that can't be actually addressed in quite a civilised and easy way. So finding you're in a group like your group with the youth training and employment, you've got the real advantage of being very focused on what you're about, but at the same time there are many ways in which you could achieve your objectives. And I think that then becomes quite important to have cooperation skills to be able to find things down, to find out, okay, this is where we're all in agreement, we're all doing, or what are we doing? Are we all doing the same thing? Are we doing things differently? Is there any conflict about what we're doing? And how, in fact, do we bring all that together so that the overwhelming purpose for why we are meeting can, in fact, be achieved? So often it's how you organise that agenda. And while I'm sort of for formal agendas, I'm also, as some of you know, for quite flexible formal agendas. It gives you a structure, but it's really important for the conversation to go where it needs to go. And people who want to express something within a particular context, even if it seems out of place or out of time, collaboration means, in fact, it may not be from that party's perspective. So it's important to then be flexible and take it as it comes and go with the flow. I think also that what I've found is, and maybe it's the circumstances that I've been put in, and it might be different for you, but you need to sort of know where you want to end up. Otherwise, I think I've often found, and I've got nothing opposed to group therapy, but it's not always the objective of what we have been brought together to achieve. And that's why I think having that focus becomes really important on what is going to be the future action, what is the plan, if you like. And I think the Waikato plan was called the plan because it was to have a focus, and it was to have a continuity, and it was to have an objective, and things are not going to be resolved overnight and all at once. So people, in fact, have to understand, often the much used term these days, are on a path, but are on a process or what have you, that will take time. And it will take flexibility, and it will take patience. And I think what also I've found is at times to know when something's relevant and when it isn't. And I was thinking about that in the context particularly of this work group. It can't be more relevant than just about anything else in public policy terms, as far as I can see. I've just had a notification that the shops just up from where I live have been vandalised, windows broken, graffiti put across shopkeepers' windows and what have you. And it's a very community-focused centre, and people are extremely upset by it. And it looks to be, at great lunch without judging it, that random and probably people seeking something to do or what have you. I know, however, what's going to be said. It's youth who are out there with nothing better to do than go around vandalising someone else's property, and they should be in work, or they should be in training. I can almost hear it now. And this will be well-meaning and comments that will be made. And thinking, yes, it's not unusual any longer to find one's own community space being threatened, and the way in which it's being threatened is being characterised by a younger generation. And you see that through the media all the time, and I'm not going to mention ram raids, etc., and the rest of it. for those of us academics, I must say that there's a hell of a, sorry, I shouldn't say that, there's a lot of literature at various generations where youth do precisely this. They don't use ram raids, but they do very antisocial behaviour from 19th century through. And the differences this builds up between the generations becomes quite important, and how, in fact, they cope with it. Now, that's not to say we shouldn't be concerned about it. Of course we should, but I think at times we look for perfection where it's not there, that sometimes if you particularly look at often the characteristics of the people who are causing this, they are young. And the more we understand about particularly the physiology, if you like, and the development, neurological developments in young people, one has to become, I think, just more aware through that knowledge that we do need different approaches to be able to do this. It's not the old standard ways of doing it. Because we have increased knowledge means we also have the opportunity, hopefully, to find new ways of doing it. So I've seen the workshop as being extraordinarily important in whatever form it takes. I think there is certainly public policy interest, and I'm sure just through the skills training and through the emphasis and the public resources the government is putting into this area, it also thinks that. And in fact, I was just talking to someone yesterday about driver's licenses, because I know that's been an identification from the group as to one of the key barriers, if you like, often to get young people into employment or into training, because if you haven't got a driver's license, etc., particularly if you're in a regional area, then in fact you've got real difficulties in a practical sense of being able to do it. So I've always seen this workshop as being quite down to earth, you know, sort of real life stuff, and sometimes that is lost in the translation and the formation of policy, which becomes more and more generalised and theoretical, and if it's going to be put into legislation, then subject to all sorts of interpretation. But it seems that what's important about coming together, which to me is what cooperation is about, on a common object, to be able to pursue that in the right forum, in the forums that can in fact produce the action, becomes most important. So that requires that identification, that knowledge, and that time and that opportunity to be able to say, right, if it's driver's license or whatever it is, then in fact this is the appropriate way to actually go for it. This is the appropriate way to actually try and achieve that objective. So I don't know if that, oh, the cat's come just at the door. I don't know if that's helpful or not. And I was thinking through, and I know I've said this before, but we all need to be, and I'm saying this to myself, open-minded and quite flexible about how to do things, because I know at times I'm not. And I've always been lucky enough to have people tell me in an appropriate way that one must remain open-minded, and therefore the connections that come through cooperation become easier to be able to identify and pursue. So someone else's idea that looks pretty different to yours may well be the only way to achieve what you want to. So you've just got to give yourself time and space to be able to do that. And finally, as I've said before, and I'm pleased the rugby union took my advice, patience sometimes is important. So I just hope we win against Argentina. But it seemed to me that and I do it myself, you want things to happen yesterday and quickly. And if they are to be enduring, then it's not going to happen quickly normally, because you'll have to bring what we're talking about, all these different interests together, all of which might be on the same page, but how to achieve it may not be on quite the same page. So an agreement as to how we go about it together. So I hope that's helpful.
Awesome.
Max, over to you.
Yeah, kia ora, Margaret. Start again. I thought I'd cleared myself, but now I'm open. Okay. Yes, it was helpful. And I think back, I'm going to be honest here now, Margaret. When I first sat next to you in a meeting, I actually had no idea who you were. And then the reference which you absolutely deter, I know this now, is when someone refers to you as Dame Margaret. And I got quite nervous at that point, and I quickly started Googling who I was sitting next to, and started understanding who it was. And it's like, you go through that initial period of intimidation, but what I've learned over the time working beside you and listening and understanding is the experience, the wisdom, the maturity, and the knowledge you bring to the role is incredibly valuable to the likes of myself to understand what my part is in playing in a leadership role as well. So I thank you for that, and I apologise for not knowing who you were when I first met you.
Oh, I probably owe you an explanation, and this is sort of off the agenda. I was offered what was the honour, which in the olden days was the equivalent of a damehood or what have you, and then they decide to bring back sirs and dames. There was a change of government, change of policy. We could all change titles, and I just thought it was wrong. I come from an Irish heritage. I have real difficulties with the monarchy, and I will, where it's appropriate, obviously be respectful. But being called a dame just seemed to me to be not within my imagination, if I can put it like that. I thought the honour was important. I accepted. However, of course, like all these things, and it's a very good lesson, I don't mind what I'm called now, within reason. So I take the title respectfully, whether I'm a professor, an emeritus professor, a dame, or Margaret. So I tend to go to Margaret. But I know what you mean, Max. I didn't intervene at that point because I thought, oh God, how on earth am I going to explain this, as you can hear, rather long explanation?
Awesome. Thanks, Margaret. And it's interesting to say about the importance of listening, whether it's the time, the place, and as you said, whether it's virtual or not, your ability to listen and actually chair meetings with a cat that's running around you is beyond belief, because we've got a puppy which I have to keep on either locking in his cage or demanding that one of us takes him to doggy daycare. So we've actually got a bit of freedom to actually take part in our meetings here in the room. Look, the importance of having Desiree, in terms of organising and resourcing our meetings is really important. Disinformation in the local government sector has been incredibly challenging over the last couple of years since COVID, and certainly since the introduction of Three Waters. And I think that, and this is for everybody in the room, if you are confronted by anybody and there's a difference of opinion, make that conversation immediately. If I hear things that are going on, but I won't say behind my back, but stories that I'm not doing my job properly or I've done something wrong, phone them immediately and sort the problem out. Because the one thing in a leadership role I've found is if I can have that conversation as soon as possible, you negate a lot of the issues that could possibly develop as a consequence. So it's really important for anybody just to keep those conversations open. I think the common points is a big one. Always look for that commonality and always look for the positivity in someone you've got a relationship with, and reading your audience and chairing meetings, determining those that need a bit more time than others to express their views. Don't cut people off short. It takes some others a long time to get their points out that are really necessary. I remember, we're all working in this youth space, and my predecessor, Dale Williams, as the previous mayor of Otorohanga, when here's one of his presentations, I remember the saying quite clearly. It's like, before you go out and criticise the youth, just remember who raised them. So as a parent, it's kind of really important that, that we actually do our job. And look, seriously, this isn't relevant for most of you in this audience here, but for those of us that are parents, always keep that in mind, that we're the one that raised the kids, so we're actually to take responsibility for what their behaviour is further down the track. And I think that is really relevant going forward. In terms of this group or this collective and the youth training and employment initiative, look, everybody here in this forum is doing the mahi. They're at the ground. They're trying to work after our young people who are going through probably the most challenging time in the history that I'm aware of anyway, because there's so much distraction. There's so many screens. There's so much misinformation. and there hasn't been the freedom to get out and express yourself like we would expect normally over the last couple of years. So it's been incredibly challenging. And I found it quite sad last night. I was at a meeting in Otorohanga about the need for security cameras around the whole town to counter antisocial behaviour. And I think if this is where we're at now, it's really a sad reflection on society. So I hope we can actually move through this period and we can all feel way safer in our own homes and in our towns, and that our businesses don't have to be concerned during the night that they're going to be ram raided or robbed the next day. So all of us collectively have got a lot of work to do in that space to ensure we build the next generation of young positive people going forward. Look, before we go into the next part of Regional Skills Leadership Group, is there any questions of Margaret in the audience here? I'll try and keep an eye out for hands up. Hands up is probably the most appropriate. Or even just yelling out could be just as easy. Okay, I do see a hand from Manajon. Go for it.
Kia ora, Margaret. I just want to, acknowledge your leadership over the years within the Waikato plan, and also the other, the many, I guess, the plethora of groups that you've also chaired along the way. I too, like Max, I knew who you were when I first rocked up to a Waikato plan meeting with Te Reo here. And I saw you across the room there, and I nearly shat myself. I went, "Whoa, here she is." Dame Margaret. I didn't know what to call you, so I just followed Te Reo's lead. She said Margaret, but you I guess you don't say much, Margaret, but just the, I guess, the volumes of the oozing of experience that you provide, the groups, all the groups that you've been part of, and also the many people that you've touched. Myself too, I've taken a few notes, actually several notes, but as Max said, good luck herding those cats, and wish you all the best there. Desiree, yep, all the best. I'll be interested to know what your new venture is, and that's me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Manajon. Any further questions? I can't see it at the moment. You can always come back later on. Look, thanks, Margaret, for your presentation. Obviously, feel free to stay around and put the cat on your lap and listen to some of the presentations going forth.
I'll probably sneak away in about half an hour.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Jerusalem Aurakahana, the advisor for the Waikato Regional Skills Leadership Group for MB. I'll hand over to you. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Max. Thank you for that introduction. Before I kick into it, can everyone see my screen?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, kia ora koutou, ko Jason Takunga, he reti nei no ngā te puke o Matuharangi hoki. Thank you for having me, first of all, and inviting me to speak today. It really is my pleasure and honour to be here. I probably first want to acknowledge, I guess, the YT and Waikato plan, and I guess the last 10 months or so of collaboration with them, resulting in me being here today. And so, yeah, Michelle invited me to talk a little bit, I guess, about our relationship and collaboration with YT and Waikato plan, specifically on the Regional Skills Leadership Group in our regional workforce plan that we've developed and just delivered last month. And so, yeah, it's great to be here and chat to you all, so I'll kick right into it. So, yeah, like I said, my name is Jerusalem. I'm one of the advisors with the RSLG. I also hold the rangatahi portfolio for the Waikato. So if we click into the next one. So I just wanted to give a quick summary of who the RSLG is for those who aren't familiar. So to be super clear, we look to what the current and future skills needs are for Waikato, and we were created as part of a national labour market and skills reform. The RSLG groups themselves bring together regional leaders who deliver the regional workforce plans, which we did last month. So within the plans, I guess a summary of that is that they set out the future workforce and skills needs, identify priorities for the regional coordination of these. So that's kind of a key purpose of these RSLGs is regional coordination. It's kind of one of the first times the government has gone out and said, hey, we have our own ideas at national level, and back in Wellington and the Beehive, we have an idea of what we think is happening, but we actually need to hear from the ground and on the ground what's actually happening. So with the RSLGs, part of our purpose is to provide those regional insights and reporting to our key audiences, which are the ministers, in particular Minister Sepuloni, and the EET ministers, TEC, WDC, and the economic development agencies. So that's just a quick sort of summary. Just want to acknowledge that our regional lead, Manu John, is on the call and is more than welcome to chip in at any point there, but I thought I'd give a quick overview of who we are and what we do. So now kicking into kind of the reason that I'm here and chatting today. I'm here to talk about some of my personal reflections, I guess being myself a young person, but I'm still considered young, in the public service sector, working with community sector and the youth sector, and sort of my experience over the last 10 months, particularly with YTE and the Waikato plan. So I guess I want to touch on a few things here. The first one being he mea nui o te ao. One thing I want to say in my experience of working with YTE, Waikato Plan, in the youth development space in general is, I guess, and being in public sector, it's quite easy to get caught up in abstract constructs, in policy and paper, in what is one specific scope in relation to a person. And for us, obviously, that's workforce development, that's upskilling, that's jobs. Something I'm super grateful being a part of this space is that every single time I'm gently and beautifully brought back to what matters most, and that is our people. That's our young people in particular. And yeah, every single time I'm in this space, I'm always brought back to that. And it's a gentle reminder that, our people, our young people really are our future. And sometimes we do need reminders of that, and being in these spaces, in the RSLG spaces or in public policy spaces, we do need to remember that, it's not just policy, it's not just paper, there's people and the impact on the people at the end of this, and they are our future, and it's in everyone's best interest to support them. And I think, I guess, being in your realms of influence, you think that'd be pretty obvious, but sometimes, yes, we do need reminders on it. The second part that I want to speak to is the power of policy versus the power of the people. And I really want to emphasize that word power too, because often I think some people think that the seats of power and influence are just with government, and it's not always the case. It's true that things don't happen in a vacuum, that there are policymakers with influence, oftentimes sitting in the room in Wellington, who make decisions that have an impact on our lives. That's absolutely true. But I really want to emphasize, and what I've seen to be true in my experience over the last 10 months, is that in the communities, in our regions, the people doing some of the most important work are intelligent people on the ground, and super passionate, who are doing the mahi, who have that direct connection and relationship with the people, who know what works well, who really know what works well, and what is relevant, and where the real need is. And I'm really grateful to be in a space where the RSLG has a platform to be able to hear that and hear on the ground what's happening and what's relevant. And so, yeah, the RSLG, I guess, in itself presented an opportunity for these two to meet, for policy and people to meet and create a vehicle to coordinate all the mahi that is currently happening, so we can reach a shared outcome, essentially, of more equitable education, training and work opportunities in the Waikato. And I know I want to speak to also that there's often a tension between policy and people. So despite often having a shared outcome, there's a tension between what we would say in the policy or public service realm of, we have an action bias, we need to get things done. And sometimes, that abruptness and abrasiveness doesn't land well in the community sectors because it can be quite abrasive and it can be very structured and sort of one-dimensional. Like I spoke to before, that he mea nui o te ao can sometimes look like it's not considered or left off the bench. But one thing that I've made clear, and I think working with Michelle and the YTE team, is that this relationship that we've created together in respect of our rangatahi actions in the RWP is something that we want to be symbiotic, is something that we see as being mutually beneficial. And part of me speaking here today is that sort of get back to. I've worked with YTE over the last 10 months and, really grateful to extract so much insights, really rich insights from them. So it only makes sense that I'll be able to come back and give to them as well. And likewise, I see that happening for the rest of our journey together. Oh, jeepers, haven't done a preso in a while. So yeah, I think one thing that was important to me was, as part of that authentic relationship, is understanding, we have that constant tension there, but one thing that worked for us was understanding what do we agree on, what is our shared outcome, and being super clear on what our respective scope is. So for RSLG, we know that we're here to look at current and future skills, we're here to look at workforce development, and we're here to get better jobs for people. We're not here to, I guess, solve things that fall into more of the social side, such as like housing, even though that's super important and does have a impact on jobs. We're quite clear that that's not what we're doing. And I think it's helpful to clear that up from the get-go, and so that we know what our respective scopes are and what our role's going to be going forward in this relationship. And the hard work, I spoke of the hard work of being in an authentic relationship, and that's, I guess, understanding sort of what you're coming into. So for me, with my experience, I knew coming into the youth development sector, there has been not so great experiences with public sector people, and I was fully aware of that. I've experienced that in my work with iwi and Māori. It's a similar dynamic. Oftentimes there's a mistrust that's happened because of things that were promised that often weren't delivered, or things that are extracted without giving back. And so that's where I speak about the importance of a mutually beneficial and symbiotic relationship is really important. Ultimately, if I were to sort of wrap up the nature of where we're heading and what we're wanting to do, it is what Princess Tapuia spoke of, mahi a te mahi he panga mō te iwi, and what I want to do and how I see the RSLG and the YTE and the rest of our partners is doing what is needed for the benefit of the people. And with what I spoke to before, I think things like understanding what's the most important, it is the people, what is the power of the people and power versus the power of policy, what do we agree on, what is our respective scopes, being super clear about that, so we're upfront from the get-go, and being clear and authentic in our relationships is really key. So what's next for us? And so just a summary, our focus for the next 3 months is definitely on our rangatahi actions. So in our RWP, which I can share a link to in the chat after this, we have a number of actions relating to the Waikato workforce, within which are several actions that we've co-designed with the YTE for our rangatahi. As part of that, I guess that interrelationship is with the aged workforce or older workers. And then we're also looking towards creating a Futures Academy, and primarily in the primary sector, but that's still to be developed in terms of what the Futures Academy might look like, ultimately beneficial for rangatahi in terms of training opportunities and accessibility. That sort of wraps up my quick summary of my experience so far over the last 10 months collaborating with YTE, a bit about RSLG. So if anyone has any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Jerusalem. That was a really cool presentation. And I suppose the questions then can open up to both you and Manujon, who probably the both of you have the two coolest names that are out there, but that's kind of secondary to the presentation. Yeah, love the focus. And I think the part that I really like at the end is that focus on the aged workforce. And it's a discussion that we're having now as well. Like we talk about the different demographics. And I mean, this is, the YTE is obviously, the first word in there is youth, but there's a couple of cohorts that have already been missing. And those are the ones that are returning to the workforce in their I suppose early 30s or 40s, the young mums who are going back into the workplace and have lost their confidence through being absent for a couple of years and just need a bit of support around that. And the age workforce, we've got a huge skill set out there that isn't being utilised well enough in the country at the moment, and they actually need the support in that care also going forth. So just a question from me before I hand over. When you finish the next 3 months as part of the RSLG, do you all get together and go, hey, where's our key rewards for the year and what's our refocus for next year? Is that something you do at the end of each passing of the year?
Yeah, and Manujon, do you want to jump in and talk about our business plan a little bit?
Sure. So firstly, what we do is we pour a big whiskey, a large whiskey. We sit back. No, I think so. Our focus for the last, over a year now, probably nearly a year, has been creating the regional workforce plan. So we that was launched in July. I can't remember. July. It's just the world is a blur. What we're doing now is we're about to embark on the implementation planning. We're essentially, I'm in a roundabout way coming back to your question, Max, is yes, we're sitting down, we're evaluating and planning all at the same time. We essentially have 10 RSLG meetings. So June next year, we would have had to have completed many of the 30 actions that we've listed in our current regional workforce plan, and then completed sort of a refreshed version of that plan. So it's not about recreating it. It will be an update, a bit of a progress report, so we're having our first meeting as an RSLG with a few new members joining on Friday. We've already been discussing that with our co-chairs and also with a few of our members about what that might look like as we start implementing it. So yes, we've looked back, patted ourselves on the back for getting across the line, our regional workforce plan with minimal bloodletting, and I guess the exciting part of it starts now, Max. So it's just really planning our calendar, getting out, talking about the plan, following up on some of those actions. If I just digress a touch, one of the things that we've listed in our regional workforce plan is as an action that we really want to get behind and help push along is the Trades Training Centre that will be opening up in Tokoroa. So I had a meeting with Amanda yesterday, Amanda Hema over in Tauranga, along with Toyoho Mai, and talking about, as Amanda would say, a real circuit breaker, a break away from how things have been done traditionally. South Waikato are very clear that they want to have more of that industry voice in there, and it touches on the point that you made, Max, about some of our more mature workforce and how do we keep them on board? How do we support them to pass on their skills essentially to the next wave of young workers coming up through the ranks there. So that's quite an exciting model, or quite an exciting thing that's happening there. I just see that there's potential to uplift that model, and I'd love to see something in Otorohanga, because I always remember you, Max. Don't forget about us. Don't forget about us. So that's something that we're really really supportive of as an RSLG, and our members. Essentially representing different sectors. It's really their networks that we're leveraging off. Also, although the RSLG doesn't have budget to implement a lot of these things, what we do know are a lot of people who do hold the big budgets, and so helping to support the business cases for them to release some of that funding to a number of the actions that we have around the place. So a long way. It's an ongoing process, Max, about evaluating, tweaking. Oh God, could have done that better. Okay, and on we go. So we as David Hallett would say, we're moving at lightning speed, like the speed of 4. But trying to be very mindful and careful along the way, and listening too, Margaret, I might add. Done a lot of that. I can show you the scars from not listening. Anyway, I hope that answers in some way, Max, your question. It probably opens a lot of. It's a larger question that you're asking, an important one too.
Kia ora, Manajan. Look, we're developing all the time and understanding new ways of addressing any issues that are out there. And I think that mature workforce have got a lot to add. There's a real add value there, which they can bring to our younger cohort and bring them forward. So, hey, very cool. Look, I'm normally really a stickler for time, and I'm already losing it on this one. So any questions of Manajan or Jerusalem, can you please do it through the chat, because I've got to keep things going, or otherwise, while Margaret's looking over my shoulder, I'll get in trouble. Okay, moving on from there, we'll go on to the Waikato High School's CoLab. And I've got a whole lot of names here, and I can't remember who is present and who's not. So I'll go for Joe, Jamie, Stevie, and Cameron. Hand over to you guys, and you can say what you're here for and tell us about your mahi. Awesome.
Kia ora whānau. Can everyone hear me all right? Thumbs up. We're having a bit of a shock at my end. I've just finished this presentation just a few minutes ago, and my laptop decided to not let me. The keys don't work, but the clicker button does. So hopefully Jamie's sharing our screen. And please honestly just shout out, like verbally, not through chat, but verbally, if it's not working. It's obviously not working yet. But anyway, this is, oh, here we go.
No, it's not sharing.
No, is it sharing?
Can you see it?
Leave it on. Can anybody see that? Or do I need to share it?
We're
We
just
can
seeing
see
a blank
we
screen.
can see a screen. It's just not the right presentation.
Okay. Maybe. Is it because Jamie's not talking that she needs to be the one doing it? Or is that, this sounds really basic.
No, I think she just may need to change what screen she's sharing.
Okay.
If I can help, Joe, I'm here as well. Just yell out.
Yeah, I would have shared you with it, but we've updated it since then. So
Okay.
yeah, it's because basically it doesn't matter. I'll just start. Is that not sharing? No, it's on Jamie's screen, but it's not sharing with the rest of you.
We can only see her Teams window, not the presentation.
Okay. Hold on. Everyone's got 30 seconds to talk amongst themselves.
Maybe it's your one.
Huh?
Michelle, they're getting their screen up. It looks like you had a question for Margaret. If she's still online, maybe we could ask that before she hops off.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yes, Margaret, my question was for you as an experienced chair and all of those years of collaboration that you've seen, and you spoke to us around finding common ground and how that can be a great starting point to then communicate across differences. I'm interested in the ways that you've seen that happen effectively. So what have been your favourite or your preferred ways to actually get groups finding common ground? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I suppose there were two areas that sort of came to mind in a way that I first started it, and that's when trying to explain feminism to Rotary clubs. And Rotary clubs were full of really good men. Actually, in those days, they're women now. And it was just a question, really, of finding where the commonality was, and it was normally daughters. And a lot of misinformation, I suppose, about what it was really all about. That there was just total ignorance, or misinformation as we call it now, more than ignorance, I think, because people were open. And I learned a lot, actually, through having to what people thought were difficult circumstances, and they were difficult in my mind, but when I got there, the people were lovely. And didn't agree with me, that wasn't the point, really, but at the end of it, there was a better understanding. And so that was sort of a stand-up, I'm talking at you type of thing, and then doing the exchanges and always leaving enough time for questions was really important. The other really difficult one was really talking about trade unions at a time when people thought they were communists and terrible destroyers of New Zealand society, not understanding anything about New Zealand's history, I hasten to add. And again, there was a mutuality of just understanding role and what people were about. They were sometimes harder because they were more ideological, I think, and dealing with ideological difference I found the most difficult. And one of the things I learnt there was there's some people you cannot communicate with at the end of the day, and it's probably just easier to cut your losses and be polite and respectful, but just not waste your time. You learn something from that, but at the same time there has to be a neutrality, and it's finding whether there is a neutrality of interests. There became an important part of the conversation. If there was, you can work with something. If there's not, then a reasonably graceful exit was the best strategy I'd advise, for what it's worth. I think some people are finding that with the conspiratorialists at the moment as well, actually. I don't know if that's helpful. They're quite general, but...
Thank you. Super relevant. Thank you, Margaret.
Cool. Go for it, Joe.
Is it on now?
Yep.
Yep, Stephen shared it. It looks good.
Oh, legend. Nice one, Stevie. Thanks, bro. I just sent it to you as well. So sorry about that. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, bro. You go.
Right, we'll start the clock again. Cool. So this is a co-popper about basically a collaboration in real life. So I'll speak a bit to the slides, but how we translated high-level speak around we all need to collaborate into what that actually looks like on the ground where we work and how we make it meaningful. Who's doing the slides? Steve, are you doing it?
Yep.
Can you move it on?
Yep. Super.
Yeah. Okay. So just to, is that the first one? Okay. So to start, just to acknowledge that this is like a co-popper that was originated between Jamie, Stevie from Kote Pacifica and from Te Wānanga Aotearoa and their E2E contract. And it was to basically improve how they could extend their services to a wider audience and bring the superpowers from all the different organizations together to do what, like Jerusalem said, is to, because the whole point of it is to best serve our rangatahi. So rather than just working in our own silos, how can we lean on each other to do the best thing we can? So it's just a little picture to showcase what a little collaboration looks like. We've got a few cool peeps in there. Stevie, could you flick us on again? Yep, that's it. So step one, know your mahi extends beyond just your organisation. So having a clear understanding of what you do so that you can see how you fit into the wider ecosystem or what everyone else does. Then you're ready to go and meet them. This is a bit like a step-by-step sort of fun guide. Feel free to jump in, Jamie. You've gone quiet. Jump us on, please, Stevie. Cool. So the next step for us was to network and reach out. I think what Steve is actually sharing is our old unupdated presentation, which is, that's cool, but it's the wrong one. So I'll just speak to it because I know time's important. I can't see your faces. I know everyone's probably laughing at us. This is actually a good example of what collaboration in real time looks like. It's running with things as they happen and trying to make the best of it. But you're always good because you've got good people. So it's just collaboration. It's just good people getting together who share the same values. And it's not new. It's as old as, pretty sure, the ancient Egyptians. Everyone has to do it to get stuff done. I think what we've found is bureaucracy gets in the way often, higher up the chain, to allow it to happen in our modern world. So for us, we've lent on the relationships that we've already brought to our mahi from different jobs, and we bring everything with no agenda. There's no ownership of relationships. There's no costs. We don't charge each other. There's no MOUs. It's just we all work together because that's what we have to do. So for us, just to shout out to the people that help at that H-Town Youth Connect and Dana and Dujon and the previous to Dana who've held the torch for that. For the industry sector to make contact with the youth development sector, those people who hold those connections and regular huis are vital to this, because it's the meeting new people and maintaining relationships is a constant thing. It can't stop. It's got to keep going, and it gives us the opportunity to do what we're doing. Yeah, next one. What are we on now? That's some pictures of what those Wānanga look like. So those are just some examples of the youth sector. We come together sometimes. I think that was Tom there from Western Community giving a little chat to the crew about his mahi, what they're doing. And as a byproduct from that, there's an opportunity to go, oh, bro, we could help out. Hey, why don't we go for a coffee and talk about this? I'm going to go and speak to my org and see if we can get involved and do some stuff. So real time, that's what it looks like. And going to different spaces and places is real important, I think. So this one, it's like it's in Hamilton City Council, but like, taking over buildings where we normally aren't allowed in, really, I think is really important to make people feel like they're valued in different parts of society, and just keep bringing people together, and it's cool. So step 3, so finding the similar orgs who do the similar mahi and start planning. So this is a picture of, I think we've got Cam from Gaindingle there and Jamie from Te Wānanga, and they were doing a soft skills, attitudes and workshop with some rangatahi from Melville last year. So finding out who does the similar stuff to you, has a shared values, you share your resources, you share your ideas, you share your people, and you just make it happen. And just like this presentation, things go wrong last minute. Sometimes they go smooth as, you don't really know, but that's kind of keeping it real. So step 4, yeah, but they haven't got that screen, eh? We've got that one. So moving from competitive to collaborative, I'm going to read from a different slide, but it's similar to what you've got there. But creating working collaborations outside of your organisation, outside of our organisations, can mean bosses and managers might feel a sense of a lack of control. It's like it's not business as usual, and so some barriers that, to collaboration that might include the competitive funding models and contracts that we all hold within our organisations, and that sometimes typically is the competition over collaboration. So what I love about collaboration, the whole Waikato plan, kaupapa, like what Margaret, you amazingly allow us to do, is to work for a higher purpose. And that's wicked because it gives us the permission to go out and do stuff in real time. And so, yeah, working for a high purpose. But I just want to make clear the reason we are able to do what we've done is because we've got awesome bosses. So at Te Wānanga, our youth services bosses have allowed us to work in a high trust environment, to trust us and back us and value us in where we are. And it's that redistribution of power. It's brilliant. If that wasn't there, we'd be screwed. We couldn't collaborate. And we've all worked in places like that. So shout out to the crews at Kote and to Wānanga and Glendingle for cool bosses. So step 5.4. So step 5, that one there. So seeing collaboration as our new actual work team. So it means shifting from our thinking from we are employed by name of organisation to do a contract for name of organisation to we are in our kaupapa, we are employed by rangatahi to give them the best support possible. We are paid and able to do this by insert name of organisation, and we do this by real life collaborations. So it's like a different way of thinking. So when I think of my teammates, when I, for example, worked at District Council, I saw my teammates as Hamilton City Council, everyone in the community I work with, every provider, they're my work colleagues. It wasn't just the people at council, that's my team. And same with Te Wānanga, our team is the crew at Kote, the crew at Glendingle, and far wider. This is just a snapshot example of that's very small 3 that we've done. So yeah, it's a new version of work. Cool, Stevie. Thanks, man. Doing a great job. So yeah, here's some pictures. Have you got some pictures up? Yeah. So just some in live stuff. So there's Pinay, me, and Jamie and Cam there, who's not with us today. Just showing some collaboration in real time. One of the things Cameron said he'd like to mention about what he found as a benefit to this stuff. Oh, we've got the crew Ohimori there. We've got, I think, Fairfield again, or Melville. And is that it provides a rangatahi that we work with a greater diversity of adults and mentors in that room and connections they bring with them. Like it just honestly, one of the things we found for rangatahi is, or for any of us, is that our opportunities to success is often through who we know, like, and the opportunities that are available to us. So if I went in on my own, or Jamie goes in her own, she brings her opportunities. If we all go in, we bring so many more, and it's just like the degrees of it goes sort of, it spans out real quick. And yeah, Cam said it just really good because it adds so much value to his service, and it makes their organization way more successful, and it makes our organizations way more successful by working together to achieve our common outcomes, our goals. So yeah, moving on, Stevie, please. There's some more pictures. So that's like a real cool one, community. That's one with InZone, MSD connected. I was with the Wellbeing Project then, and different industries. I'm going to come back. I'll just leave that slide on there for us, Stevie. I'm going to talk to ones that are different on a different slide on my other screen, which is a real shame we can't show it, because reporting looks different when you're collaborating for your organization. It's not just your own in-house stuff. You've got to show how we've got to sort of show it differently. And we'll share this document with everyone on an email if that's cool, what we did, because Jamie has created awesome reporting. So annoyed we can't see it. Reporting posters basically of what we've done between our orgs, with testimonials, photos, graphs. It's bright, it's colourful. It's got rangatahi star ratings of what we've done. It's got kayako star ratings of how we're working. It's really cool. It really flips the script on how reporting has always been just numbers and data. It's real life reporting, and it's the only way to really show what we're doing, because it's so qualitative based and not numbers based. So I'll share that. So it's just to point out that reporting is very different when you're collaborating. Can you scroll down, please, Jamie? So we've got a few of them. Successes and learnings from what we've done. I'm going to keep going fast because then it opens up 5 minutes for everyone else to talk. Successes and learnings. Here's a few things. Good people find good people. Truly believe that. And back your own instincts. If you're a good person with good values, you'll find them, and keep putting that out there. We all bring our relationships with us from jobs to jobs. So moving from different organizations doesn't mean we suddenly lose our connections and relationships. We bring them with us, and that's our strength. Maintaining collaborations is absolutely critical, as starting from scratch takes such a long time and lots of energy. And it's always hard for the crews in those spaces when someone comes into a role and they're having to get them up to speed. It's cool, but it's hard work. So keeping people in those roles is so important to keep the momentum going. We've got to keep advocating for collaboration and high trust ways of working. Otherwise, it falls apart. I think the power dynamics go higher up the chain again, and then motivation falls apart on the ground level, and we've all experienced that. So we've got to keep advocating, but on our part, we've got to keep showing that it works. We've got to make it happen and be accountable. It is fun when you work together. I'm not very good working on my own. I'm a chatty person, and I bounce off other people's energy. And so it can be fun. It's hard work what we're doing. It's important, but it should be fun. Work with the willing. There's a lot of people out there who don't want to collaborate, and that's definitely a real thing. And again, that can often get tied to from our experiences. There's probably other reasons to do with contracts, co-papa, egos, who knows? And so with that, we just learn to adapt. So because we're in frontier land a lot of the time with new people coming in and trying to work out a way of doing it, it is frontier land. So it's cool if we make mistakes, doesn't matter, just keep going, because every mistake is a learning, and we just keep adapting and moving forward. And the biggest one for me is celebrating the wins, because the mahi is hard, and the mahi can be a weight of pressure on us, because we feel like it's important. Stuff has been highlighted already. is important mahi. So we celebrate the wins when they come. Just a shout to upcoming collaborations that E2E2 I've got on the cards is heaps of stuff like with Mito, regional speed meets, in-zone careers coach, connected, outward bound, TEC, inspiring future jobs, Puatala, ATT apprenticeships, women construction. There's heaps of stuff going on all the time. Like collaboration it's just a way of being, isn't it? It's not really a process. It's just get out there, make stuff happen. So yeah, I'm stopping talking now. I'm opening up the mic for anyone else. Thank you, and massive apologies for the absolute shit show of presentation skills on our part. Yeah. And Margaret, one question. Your cat made a big noise. How big's your cat?
I think Margaret had to hop off, but that cat is impressively destructive.
Hey, look, awesome, Joe, Jamie, and Stevie. Thanks for that. It's not about collaboration; it's about improvisation. So I think you did pretty well considering. Hey, I also wonder if you ever sleep, Joe, because you always seem to be on the go in something or another. Yeah, I like the network, reach out, connect, repeat, maintain. Hey, that was really, really cool. Look, I appreciate that we are still running a wee bit behind time. So if we can leave the questions to chat and just go from there, and we'll carry on moving on, because what happens if it is at the end of a Zoom meeting invariably is we hit the end of time and people just disappear really quick. Totally conscious of that, so must keep us going, okay? But again, Joe, Jamie, and Stevie, thank you so much for that presentation. Moving on to Te Kete Aranui, Richard Bell from MYD. Welcome.
Yeah, all good, because we had to rush through it, so it's easier to.
Kia ora, thank you, Max.
Otherwise, get lost.
Yeah, kia ora koutou, ko Richard toku ingoa, ko Ngangataha te maunga, ko Rotorua te awa no Rotorua ahau. Engari kai te whanganui atara, noho ai nei, te manatu whakahiato taiohi, oku mahi. So, kia ora everybody. My name's Richard. I'm from the Ministry of Youth Development. A few familiar faces. Shout out to Sarah. Great to see you. Who's doing some great work with Jerusalem and the RSLGs. The Ministry of Youth Development is a small ministry within MSD, and our focus is on 12 to 24-year-olds and helping them learn, grow, thrive within their communities in a bunch of different ways. My main focus is youth enterprise and entrepreneurship, and that's kind of what I'll talk about today. I was going to have one of our collaborators join us because I thought that would, make sense. But unfortunately, Maxine Graham, who works for the Prince's Trust, is out of town for whānau reasons, so is unable to join us today. But I will do my best without her. I know she's here in spirit. So Te Kete Aranui or and He Kākano are two projects that we have developed in collaboration with the Trust. And the Prince's Trust is a charity that was originally started in the UK by the Prince of Wales and started here in Aotearoa a few years ago, and is led by Rod Baxter, who has a pretty great reputation in the youth sector, and they do really awesome work with young people and around the future of work. We have partnered around entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship education specifically. They sit in quite a unique space, and they're doing an amazing job of building a network and supporting the sector through capability building, and also bringing in a lot of investment into help transform young people's lives. So we've funded youth enterprise and entrepreneurship through the Ministry of Youth Development for a number of years. A couple of years ago, we started to look at, I guess the question is, what does good look like in youth enterprise? The words enterprise and entrepreneurship are very big buzzwords, and I'm sure there's people who spend their whole careers defining those. But when I talk about youth enterprise, what I'm talking about is skills where young people are learning leadership, what it means to be in a work environment, and how they can contribute to their community and the economy through either employment or through starting their own business. And we've got lots of innovative, passionate and creative young people out there who have a side hustle or who have an idea, and through these skills help them transform that into potentially a full-time source of income, or something that they can do on the side that they're passionate about. So we fund a number of programs across Aotearoa that support youth entrepreneurship, and some of those are in the Waikato. And there's also national programs, for example, the Young Enterprise Scheme, which works with up to 7,000 young people across the country, mainly through high school settings. And that's often an introduction into kind of what it means to be responsible for a business, whether that's owning a business or leading a business. And there's a bunch of skills within that, which we refer to as entrepreneurial capital. Lots and lots of hype words in this space, but those are often really closely linked to work ready skills, but as well as understanding kind of what it takes to get an idea from an idea into something that can generate an income for yourself or for someone else. And so Te Kiti Ara Nui was a report that was written by Anya Satanan and Rod Baxter as part of the Prince's Trust. And they've developed the outcomes framework, which you can see in the middle there, around efficacy, economy, and equity. So efficacy is around what are the skills young people are actually learning in these programs. Young people can go to a program in any kind of community setting, and that can be a great way for them to build relationships and be connected. But this funding specifically is around building those skills, and so how what's the quality of those skills kind of left and or finish the program. So that's kind of the core of it, is that quality question. And then we're looking at the economy. So this is around young people having ownership over how they engage with the economy. We often build young people up with their well-being through Te Whare Tapa Whā. We've got 4 strong walls. But when young people go into the world without any money, those walls get wobbly pretty quickly. And we also want young people to not be always seen as a negative impact on the economy. They actually have ownership over being a positive impact on our economy in the way that as well transforms whānau and transforms communities. So that can be, through volunteering, through study, through getting a job, being entrepreneurial in someone else's business. I think the buzzword for that is entrepreneurship, and or maybe starting a business of their own. And then the third E is equity. So ensuring that those that have the most barriers to engaging in this space have access. And so where the need is the highest is where we want to be kind of concentrating or focusing on supporting the young people. This has been a pretty awesome resource to understand what the ecosystem looks like. And the Prince's Trust have done an amazing job as well of developing a whole bunch of resources. You can see some of them on my screen there, but there's about 30 different resources, education resources that have been developed. They're all on the website, teketiaranui.co.nz. They follow the 3 E's. There's also a template that sets out kind of 6 different curriculums or what different ways of using these resources depending on what the needs of young people are. And these are all under Creative Commons license, and so they're designed to be chopped and changed and used in whatever way the provider on the ground needs them. They can be printed off and given to a young person straight away, but some of them as well are around building kind of capability and understanding of what organizations need to have in place to support young people in the best possible way for their future. So highly recommend checking out the website. There's also some incredible case studies of young people sharing their own experience of being in an enterprise program and what that has meant for them, which is pretty cool hearing that voice directly from the rangatahi. 2 parts of it as well, which I found incredibly helpful, has been the eco mapping exercise. And this is kind of gives us an idea of who's in the same area as us geographically, but also from a business phase perspective, who's working in kind of what stages of supporting businesses or young people to set up businesses, and how can we work with them and see providers work together to support young people through those stages. This is something I'm really passionate about, and I'd love this to be live on a website, which can be a lot more easily updated than a PDF, which it currently sits in now. But there's over 30 different kind of organizations that have specific youth enterprise programs across the country, and that was just from a desktop research, and I know there's a lot more organizations that have seen the need and designed something specifically for young people. So looking at this, we also identified a gap of kind of what the next step was. Young people complete a program, and then as they move through these 4 phases, network development, there's actually a bit of a gap there around young people that face barriers to taking that next step, kind of that step up and turning their idea, which they've kind of fine-tuned through one of these enterprise programs, turning that into a reality. And so that's where He Kākano comes in. He Kākano is a pilot, and it's a $2 million seed fund and mentoring fund, which has $1 million contribution from the Ministry of Youth Development, and then the Prince's Trust has also matched that dollar for dollar with $1 million, which they're fundraising through private philanthropy and business donors. Along with fundraising, they're also building a pretty impressive network. So when these young people have a business idea, they've identified they need some capital to get that business started. We have a network of business leaders and experienced entrepreneurs that are willing to mentor young people through that process. There's also some shared support services like legal or accounting services which are incorporated in this. And yeah, this was really exciting, something that we're able to see a gap. There's been lots of talk about bureaucracy and no exceptions for our little ministry, but partnering with a community-based organization, they're able to really take an idea and run with it, which has been really incredible. That's the only reason this has been able to happen in the time frame it has. So this launched in May. The photo there's of our minister, the Honourable Priyanka Radhakrishnan, surrounded by 5 of the recipients from the first funding round, or the first panel round. So young people present to a panel, which is made up of MYD, the Prince's Trust representatives, and then one of the business leaders or business donors that's contributed to the fund also sits on that, because they actually know stuff about business. That's always good. And this is open to young people aged 17 to 30 who have completed one of the enterprise programs that either we fund or that the Prince's Trust run, and they run programs continually through the year. Those are all free to young people, and so we've had a massive amount of interest, and we're looking to support 100 young people over the next 2 years. So the Prince's Trust have a very strong relationship with Kingitanga, and some of you will know Maxine, I'm sure, and she has really been amazing at holding that relationship, and the whakatoki that they've kind of helped guide our processes and how we distribute funds is from Princess Tapuia Hirangi and around, kia tupu, kia hoa, kia powai, to grow, to prosper, to sustain. So those are kind of the 3 funding levels that we operate. Funds up to $5,000 the Prince's Trust can make kind of under their own discretion, and then for kia hoa, kia powai, those come to a panel which happens once every 2 months. So yeah, it's been pretty exciting. I see the next panel is sitting in August. That happened right at the start of the month. So since then, we've had 12 young people go through that process, and we've distributed about $180,000, and that's capital that's equity free as well. And then those young people are supported. They obviously tell us what they're going to use it for. It can be given as a lump sum or as installments, and then they are supported with a mentor, and we kind of keep in regular touch with them to see kind of how it's going and kind of what some of the impact of that has been, and the stories coming out are pretty awesome. So here's kind of some of the quotes from young people directly. Blake's incredible photographer from down in Dunedin. Makoya is an amazing young woman. She's got a video of a case study on Te Kitiara Nui as well. She lives off-grid on the shore of Lake Taupo, creating traditional Māori medicines and skincare products, and her relationship with the land and the spirit in which she holds this idea of business, but it not being about making as much money as possible. It's about a way of sustaining and a way of creating an income for her and her whānau, is a beautiful narrative. So that's all about Te Kitiara Nui and He Kākano. There's been lots of obstacles, as you can imagine. The Ministry of Youth Development handing out reasonably large sums of money to young people means that we have to do lots of due diligence, and there's lots of policy which and procedures which will get done in the background, but we've made sure that that's not got in the way of these young people being supported to achieve their dreams. And the Prince's Trust has been an incredible partner in holding those relationships with the young people, as well as some of those donors, and creating an ecosystem which really supports these young people take their idea and their business to the next level. There we go. I wasn't watching the time, but hopefully I didn't take up too much of your time, and happy to answer any questions. Kia ora.
Awesome, Richard. Hey, thanks very much. www.tekitiaranui.co.nz, the basket of light, and He Kākano. So, hey, awesome presentation. Look, there's a wealth of opportunity out there. You guys have all got the links now, so just hassle the hell out of Richard, because there's a great opportunity out there for all of our rangatahi across the motu to get into business and develop their skills and grows the young people they need to grow. So, hey, Richard, awesome presentation. Great work you're doing. And as I said, the link's there for everybody to catch up with, and I'm sure you'll be kept busy. Look, in light of the fact that we are running incredibly behind time at the moment, again, we'll leave questions to chat. And I see that in our program, we've got a 5-minute break for a breather. We'll just take that breather and don't leave your chairs, because I'm not going anywhere, folks. You're actually staying here online and carrying on working. There is no time to rest. And when you're young, you guys can make the most of it. I'll just go grow by the second. Okay, we're going to go into the breakout conversations, and you will have read that as well. So it's into the breakout rooms for conversation on something that has inspired you, not that has inspired you, something you can collaborate on, what barriers do you face collaborating and how can they be overcome, and someone in the breakout room you want to collaborate with. I'll now leave that over to either Michelle or Desiree, whoever's organising that, and we'll go from there. And that there was scheduled for 30 minutes, so we're going to cut that to 20 because in light of the time that we're at, so we've just saved ourselves 15, so we've only got 10 minutes to catch up now, people. So over to you guys in terms of throwing us in rooms, and I'll sit here in anticipation of who I'm spending some time with. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Thanks, Max.
Lisa, I think we
Yes,
did groups of 5. Looks like we're already disappearing. Perfect.
Okay. One moment. I've already set it up for 6, so I'll just.
That's fine. 6 is good.
Yeah, 6.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'll open those rooms now.
Hey, Tom.
Well, welcome back, everyone. So how many groups did we have, Desiree?
Lisa, do we have 5 groups?
5 groups.
We ended up having 6 actually, but ideally it should have been 5, I think. Sorry about the
Okay,
team.
do we have a speaker from group 1?
Joe, I don't know if you're group 1, but you can go.
Why don't I, if that's okay, I'll just volunteer, because then I'll also say an early goodbye and head off to school pickup. I was with Sarah and Margaret. We were a small group, and it was really cool to connect, and we talked about, you know, our amazing Waikato youth sector and the really cool collaborations that had been, you know, really enlightening and exciting for Sarah and Margaret to hear about. And we talked about how the Waikato Wisdom Project and that name within the RSLG Workforce Development Plan is really exciting, and it sparked lots of thoughts, and we all pulled on different hats and used different experiences that we all hold, because we are whole humans, you know, and thought of different ways that we could pick things up and who could we tell. And it was really exciting as well to talk again about, you know, the sector and how many more people, you know, need to know about the amazing youth development practices that we have going on here, and how that sector can never have enough promotion. It can never have enough acknowledgement and endorsement, because it's amazing, but there's also a fragility to the sector, and those people really deserve to be pumped up and yelled about, because they're doing really cool stuff.
Awesome. Kia ora. Thanks, Michelle. Hey, good luck on picking up the kids from school. Don't get caught in the traffic. Drive safely.
Bike, Max.
Oh, okay. What, motorbike? One kid on the tank and the other on the back? Right.
No, not today. Just the bicycle. But yeah, great to see everyone. Thanks very much.
Awesome.
Ka kite.
Cheers, Michelle. Who wants to go next? I'm looking. Come on. Okay, well, if you're not going to speak, I'll speak then on behalf of group. And I think I was group 6, so I probably shouldn't even be talking now. But it's quite interesting in terms of something that inspires you. Dana was saying, rangatahi Māori, give her the inspiration and the life to do what she does. And Elle said what inspires her are the people who work through the door. And probably goes back to Joe's point earlier on that we're employed by rangatahi. So it's very, very true that they give us the inspiration to do what we're doing. And it's incredibly important that we keep up that inspiration to ensure that our rangatahi are looked after going forward. Dana also talked about connecting with the workers, the other youth workers in Hamilton, and the hui they went to with 90+ youth workers making their own program. And yeah, I think that's really, really powerful. Elle expressed her desire to understand more what goes on in the metro in Hamilton, so that we get a clear understanding in rural New Zealand, what's going on in terms of youth space. So this is why this is so important as well. In terms of who everyone wants to connect with, hey, it's just everybody in the room. So it's pretty much a screenshot of the names and just catching up with everyone. And it's really important because we are all here to inspire each other. And before I just close off on this, just a big ups to Dana, who's expecting her first baby in a couple of months' time. So big ups to Dana, and may it all go absolutely well for you. Okay, who's going next?
I'm happy to go.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Go for it.
So our team was Thomas Hayward and Richard Bell, who you can see on the screen. And so we talked, Thomas brought a great perspective from having just left Hamilton Boys High School last year, and then as the youth MP. So interesting it kind of went down the road of careers and leaned into that entrepreneurship type thing that Richard was talking about. And then, you know, this discrepancy between what young people actually have access to knowing that is available. So Thomas identified that lots of his mates, you know, some of them would have these little business ideas, but they would struggle with knowing where to get help, etc. So this kind of like, you know, the knowledge isn't widely spread. And so I just mentioned that currently the National Careers System Strategy, which the Tertiary Education Commission is kind of piecing together, we're currently running national workshops. Last one is tomorrow. If anyone needs to go, just put something in the chat if you want to attend it. And it's just getting feedback on the career system to put into that. But the point was, there's a lot more opportunity for getting all the information to the right people when they need it about these kind of things. Anything else that I missed, Richard or Thomas? Okay.
The guys are happy. Thanks, Karen. Awesome. Okay, moving on. I'm looking for the hand to come up. I'm looking for something. I think Joe had a thumb, but he's on mute, so this is pointless. Come on, Joe.
That was a thumbs up to Karen, not to me.
Oh, okay, mate. No, you shush then, Tanya.
Okay, so our group was Tukapua, Desiree. We had a cool goodbye chat to Desiree, basically, and just a nice summary of how it's been working with her. She's been awesome, and how she's opened up the doors for us to get in and make some noise, and to do what Michelle just said. The youth development sector never gets the props it deserves, and it is incredibly fragile. And everyone that works around it, contracts, salaries, wages, salaries, respect amongst other sectors of society. It's like, it's the unsung hero of everything. It's prevention, not cure. It's like, you know, it's everything. So from behalf of that sort of sector, thank you very much, Desiree, for helping us share the banner of the people on the ground that do the mahi. And just, for example, through this, me and Tukapua have a little chat about some new mahi coming along for some co-design between the youth sector through Dana's H-Town Connect and VCE Pathways with Talita, try and come up with some cool practices and policies for industry to apply for being youth-centric and youth-ready, and bringing in MSD Workbroker with youth specialists into that is a co-design that would not happen if this format didn't exist. So we just basically blew smoke up each other's asses and told each other how amazing we all are, and talked about America and accents and stuff like that. But yeah, that's about it. So thank you, Desiree, once again for all the work you've done on behalf of the YTE group, I think, unless someone else wants to say it. And yeah, nice one, sis. Wait.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me and letting me hold the guardianship for a bit. It's been awesome. And yeah, unfortunately, I don't think the American accent's going anywhere, and I'll still be in the region. So if you guys need your American accent to fill, you know where to find me.
Awesome, Desiree. Hey, Tanya, you're next.
Yeah. So toku Desiree and Joe. Honestly, it's been a pleasure to be working with you, Ihoa. It's so cool. I was in a group with Manu John and Shannara both of whom have had to slip away. But I think what we talked about being inspirational is really that we've come together with the Waikato plan. And Manu John spoke about the way in which he loves coming to Waikato plan korero, because it's so different to what him and Shanaira experience on a daily basis, and really also how amazing it is that, and he believes there's nothing else like it in the country, where we're able to mobilize and just come together because we want to. So I thought I'd share that. On a personal level, I think what keeps on coming up for me, people, is how do we create an infrastructure that we can communicate and collaborate on more? How do we do that together, that it's community owned? Because we keep on talking about how do we know what's happening? How do we get together? How do we connect? How do we communicate? Who can we see? Who's who? There's got to be ways in which we can do this on a digital way. And so, you know, the likes of Greenpeace and the United Nations, they're getting it right. What's stopping us from getting creative and doing things in a different way, and using, best of all, our rangatahi to build it for us? Could be something really exciting. So yeah, if anyone's keen to join the conversation around that, to enable connections, collaborations, and just an understanding of our really complex ecosystem, I'm so passionate about exploring that further. So yeah, I just love how complex all of this is and how beautifully it somehow all fits together, all the chaos of it. So that's it from me.
Awesome, thanks, Tanya. Who else wants to have their say on what went on in their group? I'm looking. No, everybody is deathly quiet. No worries. Hey, if that is the way we're finishing, that is cool, because a lot of people have already had to go, and as a consequence, we've got ourselves back on time, which is really cool. Hey, Desiree, before I do say a closing karakia, look, again, thank you so much for your contribution to the Waikato plans. Thank you so much for the work you've done here. Really appreciate it. If I need travel insurance, I'll be in your knocking on your door anytime soon, okay? But I'm not planning on going anywhere for a little while. But yeah, good luck with Southern Cross in your next venture. That'll be really, really cool. And it's really good that finally you're being looked after. So, hey, everybody, thank you so much. I'd just like to close with kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa panamu te moana. Hei huarahi mā tātou e te rangi nei, araha atu, araha mai, tātou i a tātou katoa, hui e, tai hiki e. Look, everybody have a wonderful afternoon. Stay safe and go hard. Enjoy yourselves. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Thanks, Max. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.